everybody, it's your girl Michelle with Girls Talk Real Talk because when girls talk, just about anything can happen. So, I want you all to help me welcome our guest to the stage today, Miss Fatima Oliver. Welcome, Fatima, to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. Nice to be here.
No problem. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listening and viewing audience?
Well, I am an author, a speaker, and consultant. Some people would view that as a life coach. I work in the area of psychodynamic psychology, using those type of approaches, as well as interpersonal therapies. Basically, speaking to people with the perspective of a lot of habits that we have, a lot of hangups that we have, issues that we just can't seem to shake, come from our childhood and just different behaviors, generational behaviors that we've picked up along the way. And if we're not careful, that we offer to our offspring. So I work very closely with people in that regard. And yeah, I have a book right now that has a high rating, 5-star rating on Amazon called The Prescription is in the Dirt.
Okay, so let's jump right in there. I kind of like that title, The Prescription is in the Dirt.
Yes.
Okay, where did that come from?
Well, when I consider the dirt, it really came from my life. So the book is a huge testimony of where I have come from, what I have stumbled through, my embarrassing moments, awkward moments, painful moments, joyous moments wrapped up in this book. And it really started based on me truly walking through a space and time where I wanted to end my life. I didn't think that there was a reason to go on anymore. Was suffering very heavily with anxiety and depression, and was just at a place where I was tired of being tired. And thankfully, my faith stepped in, and I was able to lean in more to my creator and really seek his face, but also walk through what I consider a soul healing journey. And when I say that, Michelle, for me, that means it's in a state of mind where my heart, I'm sorry, my physical and my mental and my emotions and my faith all align up at one time, and I'm actually stopping to pay attention. And so I went through a pretty intense moment in my life where that was occurring, and I started participating in my healing and asking God to reveal some things to me that really was keeping me captive and just messed up. Okay. And I really got to a place where I was willing to sit in my mess and sit there until I was able to clean it, at least majority of the way with God's help. In the process of that, I wrote a book, and it's called The Prescription is in the Dirt. That dirt that I'm speaking of is the things that I've been through, is the taboo things that we don't like to talk about in church or even in our families. The whole saying of what happens in our house stays in our house, those secrets that sometimes inevitably keep us trapped, keep us from our own healing. Talking about those type of things to make it plain, sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, the loss of a child, disfigurement that I've lived with all my life. All these different colorful things, a lot of painful things that I've went through. I wrote about in the book, and the reason why I put it out there, because I viewed it as a testimony, and that's where the dirt comes in. And I look at it as if we allow God to get His hands in that dirt, allow Him to show us ourselves, allow Him to turn it, then He can turn it like soil and allow some beautiful things to grow from it. But a lot of us walk around with our dirt covered, pretending it ain't there, and it buries us. Like at the gravesite, we walk around unconnected with people, emotionally just shut off, bitter, and just angry, miserable people because we will not deal with ourselves. And so that really is the nitty gritty, the bulk of what my book is about. It talks about everything raw. I'm a pretty raw chick. So it talks, just puts it out there. And as far as my own personal experiences, but also how I stumbled through the victory because I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but God did. And He, holding on to His hand, not knowing what the heck was going on with me, He began to slowly peel the layers back from my life and situations and allowed me to see myself and stop pointing the finger at other people, even though there was some valid pointing. he helped me to stop pointing towards other people and curve that finger towards myself to work on myself.
Wow, sounds like it's an awesome book. I am just from what you have shared. One of the things that I normally say, even in my own life, is that God had me come face to face with myself,
Yeah.
and a lot of times it's not an easy thing. Matter of fact, it's never an easy thing, and it's not a pretty thing either,
Yeah.
because he takes you right where you are in the midst of your mess.
Yeah.
He takes you right from that space where you are on the verge of just giving up on everything, and then he begins to show you you.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I definitely understand that. Like, I think a lot of people are afraid to do that work, and so they just pretend that their life is better than what it is. It may be in a good space, but there's always something we can work on ourselves. And I think a lot of us are afraid to look at that thing, so that we because then we know it's there, and then we have to deal with the fact of, am I going to keep ignoring it, or am I going to choose to face it? And a lot of us are afraid of what we're going to look like on the other side of it. Once we do this transformational thing, what are we going to look like? Are we going to like ourselves? Are we going to be as cool? Are we going to be as funny? Are we going to still have our personality? And a lot of the unknown scares us from doing the work. But I completely can relate. If you are willing, nobody said it would be easy. Life in itself isn't. But if you are willing to walk through your life decisions, your choices, that's
mhm.
really what it is. If you're willing to look at them with a magnifying glass and walk through that uncomfortableness, there is such grace. And I really think a whole new life on the other side.
I believe that too. I believe that when we step into the space and allow God to do his perfect work in us,
Yeah.
and we don't, it's kind of like sometimes when you go on a diet, you quit halfway through. And so you don't ever get the benefits that were meant for you to get because you quit too soon. It's the same thing with God. You've got to go through the entire process. And once you start the process, if you totally surrender to the process, then not only will you start reaping the rewards in the moment that you're going through, but life is so much better on the other side.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know, my mother is a minister, and I remember before she moved from Indianapolis back to her hometown when she retired, she had given a sermon, and the sermon was entitled "The Other Side of Through."
Mm. Wow.
And in the sermon, she was talking about that very thing, about going through your process,
Yeah.
because there is an other side to it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
don't give up in the midst.
Right.
Don't stop, don't give up, don't give in, but keep going, because there is another side to it. And I think, like you said, a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission. Number one, we don't give ourselves permission to fully feel everything that we're meant to feel, because we don't want to experience the pain.
Yeah. And I think though that a lot of it sounds so high level, like
Mhm.
it's almost like, the bad supervisor, they tell you what to do, but then they don't come and show you step by step.
Exactly.
And so a lot of what we talk about, even unfortunately in the church, is sometimes it is this broad stroke of, this is what you need to do to get through. But having somebody to literally come beside you and say, look, this is how I'm going to show you how to do it. This is how these are the steps I'm going to teach you. And then from there you go on and you will begin to incorporate your own way, right? But a lot of us don't know how to start. And the fact that we don't know how to start just stops us from trying it all together.
Exactly.
And so I think we need a lot more of instruction in regards to, okay, walk through it, but what does that look like? And I think that comes with personal testimonies, bringing back testimonies, not being afraid to share where you have come from in your like really transparency, being able to say, this is truly where I came from. And when I got this far, I stumbled, but then I remembered this. So I was able to keep moving forward. Just those type of honest conversations, I don't think we have enough of. And so it leaves this huge mystery of, well, how do I get to the other side? So I'm grateful to be able to work in that space where I'm able to help people to do that.
That is so awesome. So I want to go back to something that you said when
Yeah.
you were talking about the book, and you were talking about the things that you talk about in the book. So you mentioned trauma and physical and sexual abuse, the loss of a child, and abandonment issues. And even in the information that I was able to review about you, you talk about how you helped you develop a long and complicated relationship with anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
How did you help yourself do that?
Well, I think number one, I perpetuated it, and especially when I realized that something was wrong,
Mhm.
I didn't do anything. So in the beginning, I mean, just from as a child, as far back as I can even think, Michelle, I always felt a heaviness of sorrow, just this disparity, this feeling of just just misery, like when you see on the TV where the cloud just follows the person and it's raining on them but not on anybody else. Like that truly is how I lived my life since I can remember. And there were moments where I felt like something was wrong with me, but when I would tell those that were closest to me, I just feel like something's not right with me. Like I feel like I'm losing my mind. They would say, "Girl, ain't nothing wrong with you." So in that regard, there was some enabling, but it's not like they knew that's what they were doing, right? If anything, they may have been walking the same type of life I was walking. And so if wasn't nothing wrong with them, there wasn't nothing wrong with me, right? But when I got to a place in my mid 30s where I had the fiance, I had a family, I had a decent job. By all accounts, I was making it. I felt so miserable, like I wanted to end my life. That was a huge flag that something was wrong with me. And instead of going to seek people with those gifts and that God has ordained in that space, I said, well, let me pray more. Well, let me go work and do this more. Well, let me go do that more. Let me work more. Let me just exhaust myself more. And somehow that's going to fix what's going on the inside of me.
Mhm.
And so it took a very long time before I got so desperate. And I remember sitting in my car and crying and saying, God, I don't know what else to do. Like I have fasted. I don't even know how many times I have done intercessory prayer. I have been on the worship team. I have done everything that I know that my faith has taught me to do and the organized religion part has taught me to do. I've done most of all of it. I have not changed. Like my feelings haven't changed. And I just feel like I heard such an audible voice, and I don't get that often with God. But I feel like it was like a hit upside the head. And he said, go to the dang doctor. And it was like, huh? The doctor? What? Oh, you would go, you would literally go talk to somebody, right? So miracles can come in all different ways. And God is definitely still a God that can perform instant miracles, but a lot of time it comes through human form, right? A lot of times it comes through humankind. And so by me reaching out to mankind and allowing somebody to use their gifts, they helped me to get on medicine. But even after that, and diagnosed me with clinical depression. And for the first time, I felt like, oh, I have an answer. But even in the midst of that, it still took me 11, almost 12 years before I stopped to say, but why though? Why do I feel this way? Like I know I got the medicine and it helps to medicate me and to help to balance me, but why do I need it?
Mhm.
And so it was truly when I got to that space some years ago that when I got to the place of, but why? Why am I like that? Is when honestly, I was able to start participating in my healing. I had not had that experience since then. Before then, I was medicating my issues and I wasn't looking at the issues. And it doesn't mean that the medication went away. It doesn't mean I didn't still have to learn tools or use tools and resources to manage my emotional state or my mental state. But by me stopping and saying, God, okay, I'm ready for you to show me myself, show me all of it, and I'm not going to run away from it. Show me where I get my chip on my shoulder from. Show me why I flip out when somebody calls me a liar. Show me why I get so upset when I feel like somebody is ignoring me. Show me why I do this type of stuff. Where the heck this stuff come from? And when I prayed it, be careful what you pray for. But as I prayed it, started to show me. And a lot of times it went back to my upbringing or just the different things that happened in my life. And that's why I say I focus on the psychodynamic element of I would say ministry, because that means that a lot of things that you're experiencing have that lineage, have some type of breadcrumb back to whether it was good behavior, bad behavior, questionable behavior. It goes back. And I'm not a believer that you have to live in the past, but I definitely believe that in order for you to move forward in a healthy way, you got to deal with that stuff that's back there, because it's on your shoulder anyway. And so that's what God taught me. So to answer your question in a long way, it was me standing in my own way and not allowing God to show me a conventional way of healing. You know, I was looking for the anointing oil slapped on my forehead, me falling to the ground and coming up healed. And he has done that for me in my life. But in this instance, I needed professional intervention. I needed medical intervention. And I also needed to do my own homework and learn about capturing my thoughts and learn about different techniques that I could use for myself to help me, and go through different programs. And in the process of doing all of that tough work, I was able to come up with my own method that has worked really, really well for me and for clients that I work with.
Awesome. So when you begin to step into the space that you are stepping into for the healing, for your healing to happen, and knowing, even I in my own life, when God took me through mine, um, it was one of those things to where, I don't want people to get this twisted. It did not happen overnight.
Yeah.
So don't think that you're gonna make the decision today and tomorrow you're gonna wake up and you healed.
Right. Yeah.
Don't work that way. It's a process, and it takes time, and it takes work. Because I often say we didn't get into the shape that we're in overnight, and it's going to take longer than overnight for us to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
think that's the part that people sometimes, we want that microwave. We want that quick. Let's hit it and let's quit it and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But if we want lasting change, then you have to figure out what works and what
Absolutely.
works for you. You know,
Absolutely.
even in my own life, although I had a very good childhood, you know, I had a mom and a dad who was there. Um, I was raised in a loving family. You know, every family has their set of how they do things and what they do. Both my mom and dad, both ministers, you know, so I had all of that, but I missed something.
Mm.
I didn't know who I was. I
Yeah.
didn't know who I was outside of who I was with them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as long as I was Cooper's daughter or Marva's daughter or Robin's sister or Cynthia's sisters or Durrell's little sister, as long as I was in the framework of the family, as long as I was identified as being a part of that cohesive unit, I was good. But when it came down to me determining who I didn't know who I was.
Right. Right. Absolutely. No, I completely understand. And I really believe you hit on so many things. I believe that a lot of us you're right. We want that microwave. We want that instantaneous. And to that point, I also think that a lot of us get afraid of that instantaneous because we think it's going to be such a radical, dramatic thing that happens. I was speaking to a client just the other day, and I was helping them to see that God knows who we are. He know what we can handle, right? So if we're not one of those people, I'm a very, somebody that I need to know what's happening, right? I don't do surprises well. So God knows it about me. And so to that end, he's not going to put me in this crazy space where I lose myself, where I lose all sorts of confidence that he has worked so hard to instill in me, right?
Right.
Now he will put me in a place where I need to lean on him, but it's not going to just come through and just do this tornado through my life to where I feel like I can't even breathe because he already knows my susceptibility. So if with anyone, as far as thinking, oh my God, if I walk through this space where I'm finally ready to look at why I do this one thing and it's caused me so many good relationships because I continue to engage in this behavior, if I'm really going to do this, I just want to know that my life is not going to get turned upside down. I can't guarantee that because we can't control other people. But I do believe that God knows what we can handle. He knows what we can, what, he knows that some of us that need that baby step approach. And I'm
Right.
definitely somebody that is a proponent of the baby step approach. That's what I walk because again, I didn't know what I was doing. So I just was like, okay, you guide me, God. All right, I found this article and it made so much sense. So I started putting these type of tips into practice. Okay, God, now lead me here, lead me there. And I just followed, God's path until I was able to see what he was showing me and then go from there. And I just believe that he knows his children. So he knows how to manifest himself and he knows how to morph us into who he wants us to be. We just need to be available. And so in my tangible process of becoming a better me,
Mhm.
becoming my more authentic self, learning who I was, to your point, learning who I even was. In the process of all of that, it all was baby steps. There was one day or 1 month I was working on this thing, and then after that, when I feel like okay, I've accomplished this, now I'm no more flipping out when somebody ignores me. Okay, so I'm past that. So now he showed me something else about myself. Ooh, I didn't know I didn't know I was doing that too. Okay, so now I'm going to work on that area. And then once I got to a space where God felt like, okay, she's doing better, then he showed me something else. And so I just believe that that's the way. He's an indecent and an order God. I just don't believe he's going to bring chaos into our recovery, right? I just
Right.
don't believe that would happen. Now, structured chaos, something that seems like our life is out of control, if that's what he needs to do to get us to our knees, then maybe so. But I just don't believe that once we say, okay, God, I'm here, do what you have in me, that he's going to just upend our complete our every existence in every aspect of our life and make us in the corner with our thumb in our mouth, scared to move forward, right? If anything, he wants to give us that empowerment and that strength and that courage to move forward with him. But change can be scary. I mean, I don't know too many people who like to change. I just think it needs to happen in a baby step approach. And so anybody that's going to see something in themselves and say, I want to tackle that, try to start with small steps. If it is, I want to really try to figure out why I lie a lot. Okay. Well, then let's try to write down number one, when do you lie? Let's start there. What occasions make you lie? Okay. And then what happens when you do that? Like, how is that working for you? Okay. And then how is it working for those around you? Okay. And now what do you think that you can do to change that? All of it is just baby step approach. Not like, okay, tomorrow I'm just not going to lie no more. If it's chronic, it's going to happen again and again until you really get to dissecting why you're doing what you're doing.
That's so very, very important to understand because you do. And that's really how God deals with us. If we really want to be honest about it, that's how God deals with us. He deals with us in the baby steps because he sees the beginning from the ending anyway. So, he knows everything. By the time we come on the scene, he already know how things are going to end up. We are just re-engineering what he has already put into place. And so understanding that, why do we put so much pressure on ourselves to hurry up and get to the end?
Yeah. Yeah. I really think that that is just a cultural thing. And I don't mean black, white, or anything like that. I just mean just naturally what we see on TV, how we see other people living their lives, living vicariously through other people or coveting their things and wanting. We want so badly for our situation to be better than what it is, and not doing enough reflecting on the good things that are already going on in our lives. We just want to covet other people's stuff. And so if that means covet somebody else's happiness, how can I come up with a quick way to get their happiness, right? Instead of stopping to say, well, in the situation that I'm in right now, how can I become happier right where I'm at right now? What are the steps, some things that are making me unhappy? And if it's my job, okay, why is it making me so unhappy? all right, if they're treating me like crap and I've been dealing with it for so long, well, now I got to pull back another layer of why do I let people treat me like crap? Why I let my job do it? And why do I let other people? So you're just continuing to pull back the layers. So ultimately, you get to a place where you're taking ownership and you're saying, you know what? There's something that's got to do with my own personal self worth, right? And so God help me to work out my own self worth. Help me to understand that you delight in me. Help me to understand how you see me. You started with, I want somebody's happiness, and then you went to, well, let me see how I can just be happier in my position, in my situation right now. Then you went to, well, okay, my job is one of those things that's not making me happy. And then, well, why do I be letting people treat me like that? All the way down to turning the finger to yourself and saying, God, I got a self-worth issue. Lord, help me with my self-worth. You went backwards, but once you start there at the core, you actually went to the core of the problem. Once you get to the core of, I got a self-worth issue, I really need to work on that. As you start to work on that, guess what? Now you stop letting everybody treat you a certain way. Then you take that attitude to your job. And when somebody says something to you that you don't like, you, oh my God, you actually stand up for yourself. And then believe it or not, you begin to feel happier in your situation, right? So nothing changed. You didn't get more money. You didn't get a better car. Your kids are still getting on your nerves, but you found happiness because it started with you. And so that is the issue. I think we try to get outward happiness or temporary stuff for happiness as happiness instead of looking within. And that is truly what I lived through. I thought that if I made a certain amount of money, if I was able to give my kids certain things, that I wouldn't feel this sadness. I thought, well, maybe if I'm gonna work so hard, I work overtime, I work on the weekends when they don't ask me to. I work till midnight, hoping that one of the senior people saw me up at night doing work for them. All this stuff that I was doing, tiring myself. I tell my husband, I'm gonna be home in 30 minutes. He knew that meant an hour because I wasn't getting up. I was working. I put in all this work. And guess what? They didn't see it. They still treat me the same way. So I'm putting my expectation of happiness on an external thing that is completely out of my control. And it was only when, honestly, I got a lot of that stuff, worked my butt off and got a lot of it. And then I was still sitting there miserable and having anxiety attacks 5 out of the 7 days on a new job, crying and saying, Lord, I'm going to lose my job because these people going to see me crying at my desk and they don't know me. And going home on simmer because I'm so frustrated. So when my kids said something, I was popping off at them and they didn't deserve it, but just you're on my nerves, right? I already gave my job my nerves for 8 hours. Now you can't be on them. And just really, really flipping out and disconnecting from my family. It was when I got to that place where all of a sudden I'm right back where I started at 10, 11 years prior saying, God, I want to end my life. I can't take this no more. Now I got the money that I said would make me happier. I got the job. I got the man. Everybody happy except for me. So clearly the external stuff had nothing to do with my happiness. It was only when I stopped and I said, God, show me myself. Show me what you want me to see. Dig it up in the name of Jesus. Help me to be a better me. Help me to know me. I don't even know who I am. And it was only when I got to that place and where I didn't run away when he started showing me the stuff is when I began to truly change and feel freedom. And now my fulfillment does not come from man. My fulfillment truly, truly comes from doing God's work and from him giving me opportunities and giving me this assignment to help other people to walk through a similar journey that I walked through.
Awesome. So I want to switch gears just a little bit.
Sure.
Um, you had made a comment in regards to losing a child. So I want you to talk to those mothers who
Okay.
have lost a child and they're stuck.
Mm.
They can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Talk to them.
Truly there's nothing to figure out. It's not a puzzle that you could ever figure out. It's one of those things that pain may stay with you for an undetermined amount of time, and really you just learn to live with it. I'm not sure that it ever truly leaves. There are still moments that I think about the loss of my child, and it makes me sad because I'm living those emotions that came with that experience. I think a lot of us run away from the emotional part of an event. And so I think it's important to embrace that emotion that comes from that event, but in a healthy way. And I had to learn what that healthy way looks like for myself. One of the main things that I leaned on, my child was only lived 5 hours, and was born 3 months premature. Lived 5 hours on this earth. I never got to hold her, never got to touch her face, any of that until she passed away. And everybody kept saying that it was a miscarriage, and it wasn't. I gave birth. I felt the pains. I went through labor just like anybody else. So I couldn't talk to those women who had miscarriages because I wasn't in that group. And then I couldn't talk to the women who had children who had lived and they've seen them grow, because that wasn't my experience either. So it was a very isolating experience that I walked through. My family didn't know how to talk to me. I just felt alone. And I felt shortchanged by God because I felt like I'm a good Christian girl. I do the best I can to live like you want me to live. You know how badly I wanted this child, and you took my baby. And I really struggled with that. So on different aspects, I learned lessons and ways to process. Number one is I learned, my godfather taught me this, is just God already knows what's on my heart. He already knows what I'm thinking. So I might as well just say it. So I had to allow myself the permission to have a for real conversation with God, and respectfully let him know that I did not appreciate him taking my child. Okay. I really needed that moment. I don't think I would have been able to move forward in my life if I would not have admitted my pain. And so I gave my pain a voice, and I laid prostrate before God, and I screamed and I yelled and I questioned and I did all of that. And I didn't feel guilty because I should be able to come to my God and tell him exactly how I feel. He already know. The only way for him to be able to help me heal was for that dirt, that junk to move out of the way. And so that was one of the first things I had to do. And then in that, I needed to sit in that space until I was ready to let go of it, honestly. In the process of that, though, I never let go of God's hand. And I think that's where we fall short. We get in this space of horrible pain and agony, or even bitterness or regret, and we let go of his hand. And so I think that's when he wants to be the closest to us. And so I learned to not let go of his hand. And so, in that experience of my grief, of my sorrow, of me feeling isolated and misunderstood, God brought me the story of Hannah. And in the story of Hannah, she went through similar situations that I did, as far as being a barren woman unable to conceive. And I leaned on her story. It was her story that helped me to understand that I was not alone, even though I felt that I had been alone. I was not alone, that this was a situation, a predicament that have been having way before I came, right? Fatima, you are not alone. And also that to have a yet praise, that no matter what happens in my life, yet will I praise you, God, yet will I trust you. Even when I don't understand, even when I'm upset about it, even when I'm so angry over it, I will trust you. And it is a process, but every time I think about taking my trust back, I will ask you for forgiveness, and I will put my trust back in your hands. So those were like two major decisions that I had to make based on faith, not on the way I felt. It was based on faith. But in me making those two critical decisions to tell him my heart, to share with him my heart, exactly how I felt at that moment, not caring what anybody thought about me and my conversation with God, it wasn't their business. Having that conversation and then saying, but God, you are a gracious God. But God, you are able. And when you're ready for me to conceive, you will bless my womb. And God, I will praise you anyway. Give me the strength to move forward in you. Having that intimate relationship with God is what got me through. And when I say got me through, I mean, it got me to a place where it doesn't hurt as much anymore. It got me to a place where I have lived the pain, but I was able to make a conscious decision to release the pain. And I really think that that is something that us as a culture, and now I am speaking African American, as a culture, that we must learn to do. We must learn to feel our emotions. We must learn that it is okay to feel, and that, and not glamorize drama. Drama just means anger and shade and all that other stuff. When anger is really is masked hurt. That's what anger really is. We need to be able to give ourselves permission to go all the way down to the core of what we really feeling and sit in that feeling, because regardless, it's going to come out. It's just a question of who it's going to come out on. Is it going to come out on our family who love us like I was doing? Or is it going to come out on the lady at the restaurant? It's going to come out. So to me, the healthy way is to say, I am feeling sad. I am feeling embarrassed. I am feeling humiliated. I am feeling hurt. And allowing yourself to feel what hurt feels like, what anger feels like, what humiliation feels like for a time. But then after that time is up, say, now what? It's time to get up and re-strategize. We don't sit and nestle and go to bed and date that pain. We say, I felt it. God, thank you for allowing me to have the strength to allow myself to feel it without feeling that I'm weak. But God, I release it to you, and help me to put something else in replace of that pain. Substitute that pain for your joy. Substitute that anger for your happiness, right? But we got to first allow ourselves to feel it. I think we don't do that. And maybe we're not necessarily told that we're weak. I know in my situation, nobody ever told me, Fatima, you're weak. But I was told, girl, you wear your feelings on your sleeve. And I was told, you're too sensitive. And I was told, really? That's still bothering you? All those different phrases made me feel like I couldn't share how I really felt. So when I was going through my grieving, when I was going through such a horrible moment in my life, I held it in because I didn't know who I could talk to. And that just further enhanced my anxiety and depression. So it's very important, whether you're going through the loss of a loved one, whether you're going through a horrible breakup, whether you're going through feeling ignored or pushed over for a promotion at your job, whatever that felt like when you experienced it, you have to love yourself enough to give yourself permission to feel that feeling. And then love yourself enough to say, but I'm choosing to release it now because I know God has something more for me. And I know I'm not going to be able to get there as long as I babysit this hurt.
That is so very important. You can't babysit the hurt.
Yeah.
Because, you know, just like if you babysitting kids in real life, they can get unruly, and so can that hurt. It can start taking control and present itself in other ways in your life. And you don't ever want that. Thank you so much for sharing that with our listening and our viewing audience.
You're welcome.
Okay, so in this, I'm gonna read what you have, and it says,
Sure.
it took over 30 years before finding the courage to change my life. The journey to finding myself and accepting who God created me to be birthed some key baby steps that have helped me mature in my healing journey. Number one, everyone needs a safe place to fall. And then you have number
Yeah.
two, a victim mentality must change to a victor mindset. And then three, healing includes proper placement of accountability. And four, it's okay to not be okay. So why don't you explain those four steps that you talk about a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a part of my learning. So when I started on my soul healing journey, where I said my emotions, my mind, my physical, and my faith, I had to incorporate my faith. It's the faith to me that makes it a soul healing journey. Without the faith, it's just a journey. That's just my personal opinion. Okay. So when I started walking on this journey, I didn't know what I was doing, but God was pulling me in different directions. And as I was allowing Him to lead me, be in the driver's seat, is when these type of tools began to surface. And so one of the key things that I saw that was major in I look at it as a recovery. Something was wrong with me and God recovered me out of it, right? So for me, I say recovery. One of the key things that helped me in my recovery was having accountability and a safe place and a tribe of people that could say, Fatima, in love, I really think that you need to go and speak to somebody. I think that you need talk therapy. It was a group of women that I had known for years who had already been through hell and high water with me. And so when I needed somebody to really share my dark thoughts with, I went to them because I knew that they were my safe place. I knew that no matter what I said, that they weren't going to be like, oh my gosh, she crazy. But they were going to listen to me. They were going to pray with me and pray for me. And they were going to share their heart with me in all honesty and try to guide and support me. And that is what a safe place does. If it was not for those women, I don't think I would be here today, because it was them that helped me to get the courage to walk through, to sit with somebody. And I had not done that before. And I just was like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. But it was their encouragement that helped me to take that step. So a safe place. Everybody needs some place where they can say, I can say whatever I need to say. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go do it, but I just need to get it off my chest, right? Like, I really am hurt. This guy cheated on me. I'm ready to go key his car. I didn't say give her the knife. I just said be there to hear her when she say she ready to key the car, right? Everybody needs somebody like that. And so that's what I mean by that statement.
The second one was a victim mentality must change to a victor mindset.
That one was tough for me because I had to accept the fact that although that I had been through some horrible things in my life, although there were people that played a huge part in a lot of the things, like sexual abuse at 11 years old, I didn't play no part in it. Like, that wasn't my fault. So there were some things that I went through in my life that I truly was a victim of. But in saying that, I had to make a decision to change the trajectory of my life. I had to accept the fact that just because somebody hurt me did not put it on them to fix me. It put it on me to fix myself. That was my responsibility. As when God gave me, my soul, my spirit, my body, I became responsible for it. So it's not fair. If we want to say fair, if it's fair, no, it's not fair that the person that may have hurt me may never apologize. It's not fair that they may never walk with me and listen to all the way that they hurt me. No, that's not fair. But it's still my responsibility. And that's a part of learning that my self-victimization, meaning I'm waiting on somebody to fix me. And because that person hasn't come along, I'm just going to stay stuck. No, in order to heal, you have to say, I'm done waiting. You have to say, I'm done. I'm changing the narrative of my life. I'm changing the story that has been spoken over my life. And I'm becoming, or I am positioning myself to become who God wants me to be. Right. And then from there, it's that, it's tough to say it, but you kind of got to be open to other people's perspective. You got to be open to a different mindset, a different outlook on a situation. A lot of times we get stuck in our pain, Michelle. We get in this place where the only thing we can hear and feel and repeat is how we got our pain. And there could be another 3/4 of a scenario, but we don't talk about that part. We just talk about how we got hurt. I really think that taking on and trying to see the other perspectives opens up the door for healing to take place and for forgiveness to take place, honestly, and for us to be able to finally release the pain that's associated with the event. I didn't say give somebody a pass. If they did it, they did it. If you experienced it, you experienced it. But I do believe that it helps you to understand as much of the story as you can, right? I just really think there's nothing like perspective. And perspective can really shift your outlook on the things in your life that you need healing from. Sometimes if you hear another part of a story, you can say, you know what? I guess I was kind of tripping. Let me let that go. And then other times you can say, well, you know what? I really do understand they were also going through a tough situation, but they still did what they did. And there's no excuse for that. but at least I can maybe show grace in the situation because they were also going through a painful moment and I was unaware of that. Perspective is everything. And then to that end, I would say absolutely there's a lot of us that are not okay in this world. There's a lot of us where we do a very good job of dressing up our mess. We put
Yes.
we flat iron our mess. We beat a face on that mess, right? We can dress up some mess, right? But just because we look a certain way don't mean that we're not all struggling with something. We all have stuff. And so to that end, it is okay to not be okay, but I want to make sure to stress that it is never okay to stay in that situation. It is never okay to look at yourself in the mirror or to have that talk at night between you and God and say, God, I'm messed up. I know I got to change myself. I know I got some stuff in me that just ain't right. God, I'm just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then you say, okay, good night, God. And then you just never even try to work on yourself, right? A lot of us do that too. And to me, that means that you still want to stay stuck. So not being okay, but not working on the fact that you're not okay, to me is stopping God's greatness from coming out in you. It's just really, really doing a disservice to yourself. It's doing a disservice to who God created you to be. And it's doing a disservice to all the people that He had in line for you to touch with your life because you want to stay stuck. So I had to learn all those things through my journey. And truly, those four keys were the foundation of everything else that God built on top of it. But that was the foundation of my journey, of my healing journey. I had to take accountability for Fatima and not just say, all this happened to me, all this happened to me. I had to get to a place where I was saying, but Fatima, at some point, you were held accountable for your decision making. So when did that kick in? Like, when did you start being accountable? And I had to look at my life and say, I can't keep blaming such and such for the direction of my life now. Doesn't mean that there isn't residue of that pain there that I need to look at. But seriously, if I'm dating homeboy and I know that he's bad for me, at some point I got to make the decision to let him go. And that has nothing to do with what happened to me at 11 years old.
Right. It's so important for us. I was saying to someone a few days ago that every time that I say yes to something, I'm saying no to something else, and vice versa. Every time I say no to something, I'm saying yes to something else. And so it's important in those moments that we learn how to say yes to ourselves,
Yeah.
and not say yes to them and no to ourselves,
Yeah.
because we've got to own it. And when we own it, we're honest with ourselves. We're honest with ourselves about where we are, what we're experiencing, how we view it, and how we've allowed it to take precedence in our lives. And then we seek to change it. And so that's so very, very important. You don't know how many people you done helped just
Mhm.
by sharing your four key elements to your recovery.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And back to what you stated earlier though, it was not a 24-hour transformation. Healing is ever evolving. There are things that I continue to run into about myself that I say, wow, what's that about? And it's all up to me on if I want to dive deep into discovering what that thing is about. When I started my journey into healing, my major, or I'll say soul healing, my major things that I needed help or that I felt that I wanted to recover from was unforgiveness, codependency, and anxiety. Those are the three things that I wanted to focus on. And so those were some huge boulders in my life. And I did work through those. And I'm so grateful that God gave me the courage to work through those things. But along the way of working through anxiety and codependency and unforgiveness, I realized that I was real angry. I never paid attention to it before. I just thought that was a part of my personality. You do something, a certain thing, and it really made me angry, and I felt that it was justified. But along the way, God said, "No, we're gonna make a pit stop right here. Why are you so angry?" And I made the decision. Okay, God, show me what you want me to see. And I realized that as a child, that when I was big family, I'm the only girl out of 5 brothers, and I have all boys. And so as the only girl, and sometimes just really rowdiness, I would feel like nobody was listening to me. And so I even got to the point where I would raise my hand to be heard. It even became a joke. Fatima, look at Fatima. She's raising her hand again. What do you want, Fatima? That's how I grew up, because most of the time I felt like people were ignoring me. So I would be having a conversation with someone. And then if somebody else came up, they would completely stop talking to me and just pretend like I just wasn't there talking to them. And I learned to raise my hand. When I got into the boardroom, 40 years old, I'm still raising my hand. Folks are like, oh my God, you're raising your hand to talk, just talk. I didn't realize that I was still doing that habit. Okay. Didn't seem like a big deal, but it was a little silly, right? When I went back and started thinking about, why do I get so angry when my husband, I'm talking to him and he doesn't look at me when I'm talking? Why do I get so angry when I'm at work and I'm talking to somebody and somebody else comes up and my boss or whoever starts talking to that person as if I'm not standing there? And when I say I get angry, I mean, I almost forget I'm at work. I'm like, forget professionalism. I'm about to say, you don't see me? I'm mad. And I take that home and I'm like, oh, that made me so mad. Why does that continue to happen, Fatima? When God showed me that correlation, I didn't go back and call everybody in my family and say, remember when you did this to me? No. But it helped me to understand what the trigger was inside of me that was being ignited every time I felt invisible. And so then going forward, if my husband was just watching football, and I probably shouldn't have been talking to him anyway during that time, and he didn't listen to me, and I started to try to get all tense up, I can say, Fatima, it's just pulling on that trigger from when you was a kid and you felt ignored. This is not that type of situation. You need to calm yourself down, go get you some ice cream or something, go in your room and read a book, chill out. But in the beginning, I wasn't able to do that. I would justify it as, well, you should pay me some attention, So going through this journey and the slow progression of the journey, I learned so much about myself, and I learned about a lot about my triggers, the things that would set me off. I learned about where they came from. A lot of them were from my past. And then I learned how to take responsibility for them and to find healthier ways to handle myself when I'm in those type of situations.
That is key. That is key. Fatima, I thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your words and your bits of wisdom, the keys and the tools that you have shared with our listening and viewing audience. Um, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm definitely on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and also on LinkedIn. And you can look me up at Fatima C. Oliver. You can definitely find me. But I also have a website, and it is fatimac.com. I actually, Michelle, send out weekly messages to subscribers, just giving them some encouragement and giving them action items, things to try throughout the week to help them grow and to help out their day-to-day engagement with people. Hi, you guys. Okay, so we are on our next card. And psychologist and philosopher William James stated, the first step to overcoming misfortune is to simply allow it to be. And he was basically talking about acceptance, okay? Acceptance is not giving up on a situation. Acceptance is not saying that what happened was okay. Acceptance is simply allowing your psychological and your emotional resources to move on. And of course, if someone ever wanted to speak to me one-on-one, they can find some information there also on my website, fatimac.com. And, if you want to find out more about me and my story and my testimony, then I would say definitely start with my book. And it is on Amazon, and it is called The Prescription is in the Dirt.
Thank you again for being on our podcast.
You're welcome.
And definitely have enjoyed talking with you and hearing the wisdom. A lot of people say that only the older folks have wisdom. Wisdom comes from overcoming situations, and it's the residue that is left, and that's what we get the permission to share with other people. So
Yes.
thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So this ends another wonderful podcast with the Girls Talk Real Talk. Guess what? We're going to have another one next week too. Because you know why? On Girls Talk Real Talk, when girls talk, just about anything can happen. So we'll see you again next week. Bye bye.